Bram, I want to just touch on a couple of incidences that have happened, I guess statements that the BDS has made recently, notably the pig's head incident. We haven't really had an opportunity to engage with the BDS and just get your response on that. I mean, is that, was that an act that you support? What kind of a statement were you trying to make? Obviously that came across quite strongly as anti-Semitism, and there's obviously been subsequent protests thereafter, and the Woolworths AGM, they're standing firm, they're going to continue to trade with Israel. What are your thoughts?
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, the pig's head incident had no link to the BDS movement. In fact, Woolworths itself can confirm to you, and press statements can confirm, that the BDS movement distanced itself from those activities. And ultimately we ended up meeting with COSAS, the organization that had done this particular incident and this particular campaign. And it is us who convinced them to stop, because we saw the pig's head action as being one which did not respect the religious views of Jewish people or Muslim people or religious values in general. So we thought that that particular campaign was misguided. We respect and understand the passion of these young COSAS students, one of whom, the famous one who did this, just did his matric last year. We understand young people at a school-going age being or trying to be as radical as possible, but there are boundaries, and that crossed the boundary, and the BDS movement was very, very clear in distancing itself from that particular incident. And ultimately it is us who went and met with the culprits and convinced them to postpone that campaign. There was even a press conference. It's a pity maybe News 24 didn't manage to make it, but the pig's head campaign is not a method which the BDS movement has ever endorsed, adopted or supported.
Okay. Final question, just judging by the public reaction to Leila Khalid's visit, the sort of main message that seems to be coming across, or disapproval, is that, well, the example that people have been using is that a spiritual leader like the Dalai Lama, who hasn't been allowed entry into South Africa, but then our government seems to have no problem with someone of Leila Khalid's stature and what she's represented for various people. Is this getting support from the South African government?
We have allowed many less than decent individuals into the country. We've allowed presidents from countries that we believe are guilty of atrocities. It's well known that Nelson Mandela had a spat with Bush because Nelson Mandela was against the invasion of Iraq, but Bush still came to this country. It's well known that the majority, the masses of South Africans, including the African National Congress as a political party, and many, many formations, the Congress of South African Trade Unions with its 2.4 million members, and others had expressed their frustration, irritation and anger around the terrorist acts of the Israeli government on the people of Gaza recently. And yet the government failed to expel Arthur Lenk. Now, if Arthur Lenk is allowed to touch our soil, we should be extremely privileged and extremely welcoming to somebody as astute and as somebody as established and respected as Leila Khalid. Leila Khalid is not an extremist, Muslim terrorist. She's a freedom fighter who fought for the freedom of her people, not Jewish or Muslim people, for the Palestinian people. When you listen to Leila Khalid, her obsession, her fixation and her motivation is that she merely wants to live where she was born. She wants to be able to live where she was born. She wants her land back. She was forcefully removed from land as a child. Her family, her heritage was taken away, much like it was done to black people by our forefathers during apartheid. People were forcefully removed. You can't compare somebody who fights for their land back and their freedom and right to be a person, to be a Palestinian person living on Palestinian soil, which has been grabbed. You can't compare somebody like that with Boko Haram. You can't compare somebody like that with ISIS. You can't compare Leila Khalid with anyone other than Nelson Mandela and Che Guevara, and people who were willing to die for what they believed in, not because they were fundamentalists. She's not a fundamentalist. She is somebody who stood for political freedom and the right for her to be able to stay with her family on the land that she was born on.